And so there was actually three fields of study. One was with the mushrooms. The second one was with tillandsias, that is a species of tropical plant that doesn't have roots. So it's actually really interesting to study because the way that the life cycle is completely different from the rest of the plants we think of. So it's really interesting. And then the third is the one that I posted the most, that is the one with plants. That is where I did this huge study of exotic seeds and how to grow them on fabrics and how to keep them alive as long as possible, because otherwise they live for like weeks just for a few hours. And I kind of investigated how to make them live longer in the garment. Actually, I don't know. Everyone has that question. I don't know why I choose fashion. I think that, well, it's true that my mom studied fashion arts, and so my whole life I've been going to galleries and I've been surrounded by artists. That's something that I'm really lucky. I think I consider that I'm really lucky, and I really like that of my mom. And so because of that, I started to investigate. Is when I was 14 years old, I always had these feelings that because I don't really like the industry. Actually, I hate the industry of fashion and how it works nowadays. So before starting to study fashion, I always kind of had this fight inside of why would I like to join that industry, or what is the thing that I really like about it. But at the end, I kind of like I joined this uni in Madrid that it was really into sustainable fashion, and that was the thing that really kind of like grabbed me. Is huge. It's actually a really big world because it depends so much. If the industry is kind of divided in different process, from the moment of growing the plant where you get the fabric, the fibers, to the moment you have it in the shops. There's so many kind of steps to follow, and in of those steps there are so many mistakes uh, regarding sustainability with our planet, and social sustainability with the people that create this clothing. And so kind of like the sustainable fashion started to take care of it, but it's true that still there's no like a right path to follow, because there's so many things in our society that make it really hard to happen. It's really hard to get 100% sustainable fashion. However, with all that is happening, I must say that for example, my first year of uni, it was a weird thing. No one knew about sustainable fashion, and the few brands that existed were obviously outside of Spain, because Spain is really far from all these things. And they were really into really practical fashion that didn't really grab the attention of the consumers, so they didn't really work as a business. It's beautiful how, for example, with all that is happening right now with the COVID, we're starting to see how important is to change into a more sustainable path. And there's so many more brands that are taking care about it, and the huge industries are starting to like invert a lot of money into sustainable life cycles, because otherwise.
That's very true. So when you say sustainability, what's the word or what's the sentence that really gets, because I have seen a lot of definitions for sustainability, and I still don't think I've completely explored the whole concept of sustainability. Designing a product from the whole process, from the start to the finish till the product dies, like all of this is a sustainable process, which I think I've come to realization that it's not just it's the kind of materials you use, it's the kind of processes that involves, and including the experimentation as well. Like all of this has to, I think, you know be considered when you talk about sustainability, if I'm not wrong, and whether this is going to sustain, for how long the product is going to sustain. So what do you have to say on that?
I think that sustainability, if I had to say a word, to define it, it would be like to find balance with everything we do, balance with the planet, with the quantity of product that we plant and we produce, as well as how we equal rights with the people that are doing the garment. I don't know if you know the accident that happened in Bangladesh.
People don't want to pay more. So if you don't want to pay more, how the producer would pay more to the worker? So it's like the chain, start from the consumer and ends to the labor, Still, a lot of people are missing. They didn't find their bodies. Somebody lost 2 daughters, 2 sons, husband, wife, both. Who will take their responsibility?
That's it, is try to find a balance. Of course, it's really hard to stop this industry because it's one of the most powerful industries in the world and in the economies of different countries. And so, of course, the process to a sustainable fashion is going to be really slow, but I think that the actual word that we should use when we want to create something is to like really, if you're going to do something, to find the balance to where you are taking from the planet or from the people is producing everything, I think that, for example, a more sustainable fashion also helps people, or try to make people realize how bad the industry is, and kind of make them try to not just take more care of their clothes, because I have to say that also the way we produce clothing is really shitty right now. Like you can find so many clothes in the shops that after 2 weeks they start they start to broke, they start to like fade because they're not good quality. They make it really fast, so the quality is not made to, it's made just to consume and consume. So I think that more sustainable fashion, apart from all the pros and everything, would just be consumers realizing how bad is the industry right now and starting to take care of their garments and the quantity they buy, and also how they can then recycle. Because and there's right now so many companies that are starting to kind of like close their circle. Like if you buy something from their shops, once you don't want it anymore, they have kind of like another process that you can maybe go to the shop and they take it, they recycle, or they give you a bit of money to buy new clothing, or maybe they have people that they can kind of like fix the damages of the clothing and everything. The same an organic cotton that polyester, and it's not the same produced in really small and local factory than in these factories where they have people that are more like slaves of the factory, and they work there for hours and hours and hours, and they don't pay them anything. Garment costs maybe 0.05. No, of course that's really 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 low, but you understand what I mean, like, but that's the thing, and that's why it's gonna be a really slow process, because to make it happen, we first have to change the way the consumer thinks and their values when they buy. Because if us consumers we still want really low prices for really shitty clothing, the industry is not going to change. But if I, as a consumer, I ask for a really good quality t-shirt, or at least 100% cotton t-shirt, and I don't mind paying a few euros more, in my case euros, then the industry will have to change, because they need, like, their job is to provide us with what we need, because we're the ones who are going to pay. And so that's why it's going to be a really slow process, because the first step is to change the values of the consumers and
actually tell them that there is a problem, and if that is not stopped, then there is going to be consequences to that.
yeah. Well, I have to say that nowadays I start to see that there's more and more people that are starting to ask for this quality and ask for this type of fashion, for more sustainable one. We already like adapt to this industry and this way of living where everything is easy, fast,
Convenient,
and cheap.
yeah.
But that's it. Like we produce it really fast, we do it really fast, and it's really shitty, and we just buy, and it gets broken and broken and broken. We still buy, and then we kill our planet, we kill our people, and so yeah, I mean, of course, we will have to consume less and consume with a quality that is with the best quality. Because if you think about it, maybe you can buy 5 t-shirts for 5 euros, but maybe those those 5 t-shirts are gonna last for 5 days. But if you can buy 1 t-shirt that is already 5 euros and it's gonna last you for more than 2 years,
it's worth the buy.
The influence of fast fashion spans continents. Clothing giant Zara is now worth $13 billion, with stores in over 93 countries. Admittedly, I've made my fair share of purchases from H&M and Uniqlo, with my favorite being a blue bathing suit I bought for $10 at H&M. $10. How can a piece of clothing be that cheap to make, transport, and advertise? Well, to be honest, it can't. There are huge humanitarian and environmental costs that are hidden by an inexpensive price tag. Although these fast fashion companies have committed numerous human rights violations, today I'm only going to look at the environmental issues that are caused by the mass production of cheap clothes. The phrase fast fashion is used as an umbrella term to describe the accelerated process of turning new design ideas into clothes on the retail floor. In the case of a store like Zara, for example, it takes a mere 14 to 21 days from the inception to the sale of a product. And this ability to create new trends very quickly, combined with savvy marketing campaigns, has meant that stores like H&M and Forever 21 can quickly change every item in their store to drum up hype about a new line of clothing. Much like a fast food chain that is constantly changing its menu items in order to stay relevant, these fast fashion stores can introduce new clothes almost weekly. Not only does this mean that consumers are tempted to buy the newest and best pants or shirts, but it also means that older items quickly become irrelevant. This constant overconsumption has high environmental consequences. On the supply side of the equation, most clothing is now made of a material called polyester, which is a petroleum-based fiber that requires large amounts of fossil fuels for manufacturing. According to Forbes, that number has now reached up to 70 million barrels a year. And the rise of fast fashion went hand in hand with a rise in polyester production. Now, polyester manufacturing for clothing far outpaces other common materials like cotton or wool. This presents a major problem, especially considering that polyester is a non-biodegradable substance. Polyester can take anywhere from 20 to 200 years to degrade depending on the conditions, and is one of the leading causes of microplastics in oceans. Because when washed, polyester clothing shed fibers that then find their way into larger water streams. In short, polyester is really cheap. It makes the cost of manufacturing thousands of pants much cheaper than before. And it's able to do this because it offloads all of its expenses onto the environment. Environmental harm caused by this new profit-centered industry is not at all reflected in the price tag. The fashion industry is now the 8th most polluting industry in the world in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, and is responsible for 92 million tons, or 4% of the world's annual solid waste. So the real cost of my bathing suit is much higher than $10. But unfortunately, as consumers, we can only do so much to influence the fashion industry's practices.
Create and create and create. That's fast fashion. That's what isn't working anymore. Not just for the planet, also for the people. Also for the treat of the people who produce these garments, the people that buy them, the people. It's not, I mean, of course it's really easy to make money, but it's not what we need anymore. We need to change. We need to do what you said. There's fast fashion and slow fashion. We need to slow up ourselves and start to see the good things of the life we live in. And I don't know, we have an amazing planet and we are killing it. And I don't know how it's been, but for example in Spain, that we've been locked down completely. We couldn't leave our homes during the quarantine. We stayed 2 months, or I think nearly 3. Photos of animals on the streets of the cities, of dolphins in the beach, or in the coast, things that nature was free from us. And that was a proof of how damaged we are right now for the planet, that our rhythm doesn't go at the same time that they go, and that we're, I don't know, I think that we should just try to go see farther of the money and start to yeah.
We need to recalculate the system, actually, the whole system, the way we produce things and the way we make things. That's true.
Yeah.
Oyster mushroom. You grow oyster mushrooms and make clothing out of it. Now, how cool is that? Can you eat it?
Yes, you can eat them.
Yeah, you can actually.
You can actually eat all of them. Well, how to start? Well, actually, biodesign is something that is really new, or at least, I found it 2 years ago. Is when I started experimenting with sustainability. Because in the beginning, my path with this sustainable fashion was going back to the roots of it, to a good fabric, good quality organic cotton, organic fibers, and also local ways of producing the garment, and to kind of more craftsmanship techniques in all these fields. And so in the beginning I was really into that, but then I discovered how there were so many new brands and studios that they were starting to investigate new materials instead, because it's actually what you just said. Slow fashion is really expensive. People are not open to pay that much for a garment. So what can we do? Maybe we can create a new fabric or new material, maybe not, it's not a fabric of course, that can the production of this fabric is cheaper, so that it can be really easy producer chain that we follow nowadays. And so that's how I kind of started to investigate into I kind of is how I discovered this new field of biodesign. And so I started to investigate, and I started with bioplastics. That is the one that I'm doing right now. I mean, I'm working now in a studio, but I will tell you later. And then it's how I always been in a really kind of hippie schools, so I always been this type of girl that likes to grow their own food. I don't know. I was one day talking with my friend. No, I went to work in Chile with a brand, and I attended to this talk about the Anthropocene era that was really interesting. And so I realized that I wanted to focus my last year of my project in an investigation, because I actually wanted to be, and I want to be, a fashion investigator, not a fashion designer. After that, I was one day talking with my friend, and he's really into oyster mushrooms because he's an engineer, agriculture engineer. And so we started talking, and then I said that it was really cool. It could be really cool to like merge fashion and nature, and maybe make people realize of how damaged we are for the planet. Anthropocene era talks about an era of the planet where the humans have came to conclusion that they are the kind of, let's say, like the king of everything, that they are like the bosses of the whole planet, and they are the ones. And so I wanted to like kind of like change it all over and make the garments and put us, the humans beings, as like the support from this nature to grow. So like be the like work for this nature, not think that nature is there for us forever. You know, I don't know if I'm explaining myself really well. I've been talking English for so long, and so I'm kind of like,
I think nature and nature versus humans always been like that. Like nature is one part and human is another part. I mean, that's just wrong, because I think we are so much more connected to nature and I don't know why there's this very thin and blurry line, I would say, between being human and being nature, like, or being part of nature. Like, why are we just part of nature? I mean, aren't we just living all together? Like, why is this I'm a human and then the rest of the world? Like, I don't. Yeah, I mean, and this is such an interesting, as you said, it's such an interesting overlap, like the whole, and I hope that I mean, I would love to wear something that's made completely out of, like, I mean, a cloth that grows over time, or like, changes its color over time and can be edible.
It will be such a dream. I have to say that I'm really glad that you found me, but I'm really honest, and I like, there's so many, right? Like when I started my project, I started to investigate, of course, and I started to find so many projects that were inside this, like, this way of thinking, and that they wanted to develop the same concept. And it was actually amazing. I tell you this, it's not really, there are maybe a few more, but it's incredible how and that's the proof of how we're changing, that our minds are starting to connect and have the same ideas, because those are the concepts that we need right now. And that was inspiring. And also about biodesign, there's so many fields of industry right now that are implementing biology in their way of creating. Because, for example, there's a study that is called, I don't know, it's not just a study, it's kind of a science that is called biomimesis, that they study all patterns, forms, colors, way of living in nature, and of how they live and how they work and how they act in their life. And they study it and they start to apply it to design. And they're thinking, for example, do you remember this goat case? I don't know if it was like that the name. It was a phone case that they studied the pattern of the skin of the chameleon, I think it was, and the geometry that the skin has helps them to like attach their like they to like attach to any wall.
So, what is your current project that you're working on?
I'm working in a lab, more in collaboration with the lab that is in Madrid, and I'm the coordinator and director of a fashion project that we are investigating the creation of bioplastic that could be applied into high couture fashion. High couture fashion is like, you know,
yeah.
and so using all the new techniques of digital design, we're starting to create bioplastic that could be implemented in these new machines in order to change them and make them be a bit more sustainable. Because, for example, the 3D machines, the big part of them are used with plastics, and so we're starting to see if we can create garments as incredible as the ones we see in the high couture catwalks.
So I was talking to lots of scientists and engineers, and one of the people I spoke to was a biologist. He was the first person to suggest to me that if you really want to completely rethink how you might create a piece of clothing, that you could imagine growing a dress in a vat of liquid using bacteria. The process we used was incredibly simple, and actually I realised that it wasn't so difficult to produce something that not only was textile-like in feel, but that I could sew together like a normal piece of clothing. And it just shifted my whole thinking in terms of how you might create fashion in the future.
Bioplastic to make them 100% biodegradable garments. And so, yeah. And what was still in process, because we started with like a month ago, but the thing is with all the COVID situation, it's been hard to go to the lab, and we're doing everything like with Zoom calls, and it's quite tricky because maybe we can share experiments that we have done, but
you do need a lab to actually go and create samples and all of that, or you can work from home. Most of it is done from the lab, right? Or is
this project, yes, because we need the machines. We need all the laser cut 3D machines and this, but like the first part of it, that is investigating how to produce these bioplastics, we're kind of been doing it virtually. We've been having like classes. I mean, I did previously like a really fast investigation when I kind of learned how to create them. So we started like working each, like, because we're right now, I think that we're like 15 in the group, 14, 15. So we're actually a lot working on it. It's amazing. It's really inspiring because everyone is really into the project and is really like working so hard, and so I'm pleased and really happy about it. And so yeah, maybe in September we will be lucky to go to the lab and start to produce the final garments that, if everything goes well, maybe they will be in social media October.
Oh, that's nice. All the best for that project.
My favorite part was experimentation, because there were so many seeds that needed a lot of care, so I had to spend hours and hours and days and weeks in studio, like watching how they were growing, if they needed water, if they needed earth, the colors that they were creating, how they, like every centimeter that they were growing, I will like measure them. And so it was beautiful to see how every day I felt like a mom taking care of their babies. I was there alone, hours and weeks with my babies that were like huge garments, and controlling each detail, and it was beautiful. It was actually I think that was my favorite part for sure. Obviously, seeing the final results was breathtaking, and like I was so happy and proud that I did it. But my favorite part was like the actual process in the studio working with them.
So, how many seeds did you actually experiment with? Like, how many species of plants did you work with? And are these plants edible, or like are these like wild weeds that grow, or these are like food, like kind of herbs? What kind of plants are there? I think this.
Yeah. Okay. So
Did you hear me?
there. Well,
All right. Yeah.
okay. Yeah. And you, can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that wait, sorry, the question was yeah, they're eatable. You can eat all of them.
Oh.
You can, well, there was three fields: the mushrooms ones and the plants and the sprouts. Those you can eat them whenever. You can just cut them and eat it on a salad, and they're really good because I did it. Once the project was finished, I ate my own garments, and they were really good. And the other I started the project around October, yes, and I finished it like by the end of May.
How long did they survive? Like these garments that you did make, the plants lasted for how long?
Okay, so it depends of the plants. There was one or two that they don't live much. They don't live really long because they need a lot of water. But the garments are. Because I also had to do like a pattern making investigation in order to create garments that could be planted horizontally. They have to adapt to the body. So the thing is that when they're alive, you can easily, if you are not wearing them, you can unfold them and have them flat so that you can take care of the plants.
Oh.
And if you take well care of the plants, they can live. There was actually a garment that I managed to keep it alive for 2 months.
Oh wow.
Are made from 100% wool recycled felt. I mixed words. Felt, and so I made it thick enough so that the root could live inside the garment. And so then you have to take care of this felt, and you have to like prepare it for the plants to live, because it's normally really like strong and everything is really thick, so you can like oxygen the fabric and clean it well, and then is when you can start to apply the seeds. And obviously the process changes in depends of the seeds you plant on them. Once you know how to do it, doesn't take that long. I know it, I mean, each garment took me around 2 to 3 weeks to prepare the pattern, the felt, everything. And then 2 to 3 weeks plus, so maybe around 5 weeks each.
Oh wow. So you got the garment, first you made the material, that's the base where the plant is actually going to grow, and then you cut it out. Of course you like filtered it and made it more breathable for the plants, and then you cut it out, you made the top,
kind of like create the structure of the garment, and then is when I plant it. Because there's so many ways of doing it. Actually, during the whole investigation, I tried different techniques to create this garment, and there were a few that the seeds were ready, like they were. You had to first insert the seeds in the fabric and then create the fabric. I like more the aesthetic of this felt, and also the seeds and the plants live it longer in this fabric. So that's what I choose. And when you're using felt, sometimes you cannot put the seeds from the beginning in the fabric, because the way the felt is produced can maybe kill the seeds. So you have to do it.
Oh, so you layer the felt with the seeds. So there's a felt and then you...
It depends. There was one case that I did it. But there was others that I just I worked with the seeds after. So I first created the garment and the felt and everything, and then I worked with the seeds. Maybe obviously inserting them a little bit, but didn't produce everything together from the beginning, because there were seeds that could maybe
damage the seeds,
get damaged, and maybe the plant then didn't live that long.
Okay, I bet this was very different from the mushrooms. How was the oyster mushroom?
The oyster mushroom was actually another world. Grow mushroom, you first have to inoculate the mycelium. The mycelium is like the root of it, the root of the whole of the fungus in general. Being investigated in so many fields, from the fashion industry to the NASA. And so I started to investigate, and the trickiest part of it was to inoculate this mycelium, because you need to sterilize every tool and every piece that you are gonna inoculate, and it's really fragile. When you inoculate the mushroom, it takes 29 days to inoculate, and you have to keep it in a dark place with a really controlled temperature and everything. If you don't follow every step, controlling every detail, I had to grow them on a fabric that was already it was not a normal material, because normally fungus grows really well in a substrate that it helps them as it's kind of like food for them, so when they have maybe wood or maybe another material, they kind of use that as their food, and they grow with it. But when it's a fabric that doesn't,
that easy,
I don't know. Yeah, it's not that easy. And also depends a lot of mushroom that you are inoculating, at the temperature, where are you at, the place where you are inoculating it. There's so many things to kind of control, but it's not that hard. I mean, once you know them, once you can control them, the humidity, the temperature, the light, the quantities, and the substrates, you can do it perfectly. I did it at my place. So, I mean, you just need to be really picky, and it's complicated, but it's not the hardest thing. And yeah.
There's so many things you can do with fungi, and this is what keeps us up at night. Fungi for food, medicine, textiles, fiber, packaging materials, even biofuel. Fungi just have this potential to unlock biological material that's a waste product in our civilization and convert it into something else. So that's what's exciting, and everyone's scampering onto this bandwagon to try to catch up.
I think it's unlimited what we could do with mushrooms once we know more about the different varieties that are out there and more about their biology in general.
Oyster mushroom is really strong, but the mycelium is really easy that it gets kind of sick during the process.
Did you experiment with other mushrooms as well?
To grow other mushrooms that are much more beautiful, let's say like that. But the thing is, with everything that had happened, it was really hard to buy them, and it's not easy to buy. There's no shops that they sell these exotic mushrooms to grow. So I had a few contacts, but with everything that happened, everything got really complicated. And I'm also working on this. I haven't left this investigation there. And in the future, I will love to find a way of growing these other mushrooms on the fabrics. I have to say that it's not easy, because obviously growing maybe the mycelium, it can be, if you control everything of how I have just said, can be easy, but you have to make it stronger enough so that the mushroom can then grow, because it's a completely different thing. One thing is the mycelium and how it can like get inoculated and grow through inside the fabric, but then once you inoculate the garment, then you have to start a second process when you make the mushroom grow on it. There was actually one piece that I did that just one tiny, really tiny mushroom grow, and I was like, I cannot believe it. After weeks of working with this piece, that was my result. One tiny mushroom.
Get this final garment ready.
6 experiments at the same time. So I always kind of like investigated how to do it. I did my research and I planned like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and this experiment, and I'm gonna change these different things in each, and let's see which one works better. But actually I did 2, but with all the quarantine and the confination, well, that's what I said, life is like this. So one completely died and it was a mess, and the smell was horrible, and I remember my parents like really angry with me because we were all the time, we had to be in our lockdown in our home, and my home smelled like
really that bad.
Yeah, really bad.
Damn.
But it's fine.
Yeah,
it was worth it.
It was for sure. It was. I'm glad that you experimented mushrooms. So I'm guessing the plants were easier to grow than the mushrooms.
Yeah, the plants were much easier.
Much easier.
Much easier.
So do you plan on sticking with these experiments with just fashion, or do you want to expand this experimentation to other products as well? Or as of now, it's just fashion?
Well, actually, now that I have released the project, there are so many other artists that have asked me that maybe I'm gonna collaborate with them, and I was thinking about applying this investigation to lamps, maybe jewelry or different things. The thing is what I've said is still is nature. You cannot control it. You cannot think that it's gonna. You cannot create a product out of it.
The garment, and I saw these yellow mushrooms growing, and the composition of the white and the yellow mushrooms, it just looks very pretty. Like it just came out like so nice. I was like, oh my god. Okay, then you're like, I was just talking to my mom. I was like, do you know I have an interview with a person who made clothes that grow plants? And she's like, really? That's interesting. That, oh my god, she grew herbs. I think you should start doing that. All right, Paula, I'm not going to waste any much of your time. Thank you so much. I bet that you have to go somewhere, and thank you again. All right, see you then. Bye. Bye. Stay safe.
You too.